As I'm acquiring gears and get into the whole gear world, one side that I always find a little bit intimidating is MIDI. How to connect MIDI, different MIDI stuff, MIDI devices. At sometimes MIDI tends to be a little bit confusing. So today, I wanted to talk about MIDI from the perspective of someone like me that is kind of new to the whole gear word, the dullest word. Hopefully saving you from some troubles and maybe showing some cool stuff. So MIDI being a communication protocol, this then in a sense it means that one device sends messages to another device. But like you see, I have three devices right here and they are not physically the same. So there is bound to be some sort of complications. So as these devices are different, they don't necessarily support the same cables. So I have right here three different cables that does MIDI. Of course, we have the 5-pin. That is kind of the more conventional, I guess, MIDI cables. We have the USB-C. And then we have the the more kind of frustrating sometimes, the jack MIDI. So with all of these different devices, there is eventually some complication on how you would send MIDI messages. So for example, I have the Roland S1. The Roland S1, as you can see, has USB-C and has MIDI in and out, the 3mm jack MIDI. But for instance, if I would like to use the KP3, which is kind of a more traditional device, it has like the 5-pin MIDI. So in order for me to kind of communicate messages either from the KP3 or the S1, I'll have to use the 5-pin on the KP3, but then on the S1 I have to use this sort of jack, 3mm jack. So then there is these type of adapters that is a 5-pin and then converts to a jack. There are different types of this. There's a type A and a type B. But yes, this then allows me to communicate both. Of course, if you have like the S1 and the SP404, they are all both 3mm jack MIDI. So then you can just use something like this. And like I said, there is also USB MIDI, in this case USB-C. Now MIDI controllers are a little bit complicated because they are devices that can do, well, as the name suggests, MIDI controlling. The most use case of MIDI controllers are usually like a DAW, and then you plug in, and then you control what's in the DAW. But in a sense, MIDI controller can control MIDI devices without a DAW. There has to be some sort of computing going on, either in the device itself or some external computers. But here comes a small complication. Something like the launchpad has only one port to communicate data and power the device. Now this is an issue, especially on like smaller control like this. On the Launchpad Pro, it's not really an issue because you have like a MIDI, the jack, 3mm jack to send MIDI. But on something like this, this is an issue because this then means that whatever you're plugging this into will need to also power the Launchpad and communicate the MIDI signals. So for example, if I have the S1, there is a USB-C here and there's a USB-C here. You would think that if I connect these two, then it will be able to power both. Let me show you. And nothing happens. At first, I was like, this seems like obvious because, USB-C MIDI controller, but it doesn't really work like that. An important part as well is the difference between MIDI host and MIDI devices. So in that sense, MIDI devices are MIDI devices. And then there is a MIDI host. I guess the simpler way to explain this is that by default, usually the MIDI host that we have is the computer. So the DAW or whatever software you have in the computer, that is essentially the MIDI host. But there is a little complication when you don't have a computer, or at least don't have a DAW in that sense. But before that, I want to talk about this thing. This is a USB MIDI hub that has 3 inputs and then 3 outputs. So it has, you can input 3 MIDI signals, and then it will be outputted 3 MIDI signals as well. But an important note that I will say is that this is not a USB MIDI host. It is written on the user guide. It's not a USB MIDI host. It's just a MIDI hub. An alternative to a MIDI host outside of your computers, perhaps a Raspberry Pi. There is also dedicated devices that does MIDI host, or the one that I prefer, which is an Android phone, an old Android phone. So yes, but that is just to say that something like this is not a USB host. Essentially, these only have MIDI 5-pin MIDI. So in that sense, it doesn't work. It doesn't not allow you to power at the same time the MIDI controllers that also requires power to run. Even if you get one of these like a MIDI that converts into a USB from the other end, it doesn't seem to work. So yes, in this example, one that I've used and I'm so glad it worked is an old Android phone. Old Android phone is kind of, given this idea of recycling old technologies as well. Not too old, but kind of old. So yes. All right, so for this to work, you will need eventually an OTG cable that does also sends data and stuff like this outside of just powering. And of course, you need an old Android phone. The most important part is you need some sort of app or software to kind of send the MIDI messages to allow you to allocate an input and output. This is a little bit complicated. All right, so I found an app. It's called MIDI Connector, the free version. So for instance, if I plug the OTG cable, so the MIDI hub is powered on, and then all that is left for me, in a sense, is to power the MIDI controller. And it is now powered. Both are powered. Of course, since these sort of things draw a lot of power from the MIDI host itself or the phone, so then you can expect that this will have some sort of impact on the battery. But eventually I can see this, and in the app I can choose my inputs. So there is 5 available inputs, have the CME and then the Focusrite. So let's say if I want to input or at least send MIDI messages from this device into whatever this is coming out. So let's say I'm just going to plug this, but I don't have any devices that maybe I would like to plug it for now. So let's say the input in device that does the command is the launchpad. So I choose launchpad, and then the output is the CME. So I'm currently in the first one. I think I'm going to output the 0. And then if I do testing, because the good thing about this app, I don't know who developed this, but great, thank you. There is a testing and there are some logs here. So if I do testing, you see there is some sort of output and it blinks here if you notice. So for example, if I press some random stuff here, it blinks and the logs gets populated. All right, so that was kind of my little explanation to the whole world of MIDI. As someone like me that has gone this far in this whole thing, this is currently my understanding into kind of this exploration and testing different scenarios, essentially for DAWless, because like I said, I am not necessarily like fully DAWless person, but I'm trying to kind of orient myself a little bit into DAWless. This is a great solution that I'm so happy that I found, because not having to have a computer to use MIDI, you know, something like this. I did a whole video about MIDI mapping the SP404 to the controller, a very versatile MIDI controller like the launchpad. But back then I used to always have like some sort of computers around, so to send the MIDI messages. But this is a great solution, very small, as opposed to maybe a Raspberry Pi where you don't necessarily have a screen. You can find a small screen, but then you also have to power the Raspberry Pi and stuff like this. This phone, one, it helps you recycle old devices, and also there is a battery. Like, it's a phone, it's small, it's slick. It's the Android operating system is all force great, very good for developing, and also used as a sandbox. But yes, this sort of environment, the complication between different MIDIs is there, but it's not that complicated to overcome once you kind of see how different things works. So yes, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to explore more about the use of Android, kind of like this sort of thing. Let me know if you want that video, but explore more the use of Android devices or old devices on kind of a music production side. That's it, man. That's as far as my understanding of MIDI so far. Of course, if you have any tips, any suggestions, any ideas, feel free to share them in the comments. But yes, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.